When I was 9, I overheard a conversation between my mom and my brother. "Mom, the teacher sat us down with one of the clergy and advised us to listen carefully. The clergy told us that our faith is a lie and that we should not listen to our parents or we'll be guided down the wrong path. He also told us not to touch any of our classmates because Baha'is are najas. Najas is a word Iranian Muslims use to describe dogs. It means nasty and unclean. The Baha'i faith was established in 1863 in Iran by Baha'u'llah. Some of the main principles of the Baha'i faith are oneness of God, world peace and unity, and equality of men and women. Baha'is are the largest religious minority in Iran and are the target of persecution by the Islamic government. Baha'i houses are constantly broken into by government officials. Baha'i businesses are forced to close and/or are set on fire. And Baha'is are denied entrance to any college or university. As a result, my childhood was very confusing and secretive. Not only was I trying to make sense of who I was also trying to understand why the things around me were happening. Meanwhile, in school, I still did well in my studies. I was lucky enough to have teachers who accepted me for who I was and never tried to lecture the Baha'i-ness out of me. Some of my teachers, aware that in Iran there was no future for Baha'i kids, would advise my mom to move us out of the country. My mom was well aware of these circumstances, but she always pushed my siblings and I to do our best. She never saw these persecutions as discouraging factors, and definitely not as excuses. When I finished 5th grade, I applied to the best middle school in our city of Shiraz. It never even crossed my mind that no Baha'i has ever been accepted to that school, and so I studied diligently for 2 rounds of tests. I didn't get in because supposedly I failed the 2nd test, but I still think about it. If my mom knew what the results would be, why did she patiently prepare me for the exams? Why did she take me an hour across the city for my first round of tests? And why did she do it again? Maybe she knew that we were all living and thriving on a very small shred of hope, and she tried to lessen our hopelessness, even if it was only through the slim possibility of getting into that school. That summer, we had a family meeting. My father said, "There is a serious matter that I need to discuss with you guys. Your mother and I have been thinking about leaving Iran for a while now, but the final decision is yours. So I need you to think long and hard about it." My dad told us that we would have to spend a lot less money, but he also told us about educational opportunities in Canada, Australia, and the US. My 12-year-old self was less interested in the possibility of freedom and more interested in riding a train, a ship, and even maybe an airplane. So I voted yes, and so did my 2 siblings. But as I started selling my things and trying to fit 11 years of memories into my two suitcases, leaving Iran started to feel a lot more real. The night of our departure was emotionally exhausting. I was saying goodbye to some of the closest people to me, without knowing when, if ever, I'll be able to see them again. When I was much younger, my cousin and I decided that we wanted to become police officers. We also decided to leave Iran together and pursue that dream in a more free and equal country, because women police officers in Iran had to wear a hijab, and that took the coolness out of the profession. And there I was, leaving the country without her, not knowing if we'll ever reunite again to make that dream a reality. I cried myself to sleep on the bus, but at the same time, I felt somewhat excited. We journeyed to Turkey, where we were granted refugee status. And throughout our 14 months in Turkey, we were called for 3 different interviews, as well as a 4-day cultural orientation, from which I learned to call 911 during emergencies. Despite me having an ugly hair day every day, Turkey was one of the best times of my life. The snow, the beautiful parks, new friends, and most importantly, no school. I am now a year behind in school due to that year, but it was totally worth it. I'm sure my parents had a totally different experience, which included working as well as worrying about financial expenses and what the future held for our family. After an 18-hour flight, we officially entered the United States on October 16, 2012, and were greeted by my uncle and his wife in DFW Airport. We stayed at my uncle's place for several nights and then finally moved into our own apartment, which the IRC, the International Rescue Committee, found for us. For an entire week, we slept during the day and were wide awake during the night. Our bodies were not used to the sudden change in time zones. People from the IRC took us to all of our appointments and also enrolled my siblings and I in school. I soon learned that High School Musical was nothing but lies. My first few months in America consisted of learning English through YouTube videos. What shocked me the most about the American lifestyle was consumerism, and people's belief that materialistic things are somehow the key to happiness. In Iran, we were persecuted, and we had such limited finances. But even then, we found some happiness. It was not in things, but rather early morning hikes and late night laughs. As we speak, my aunts, one educated in law and the other in sociology, are unable to work or teach. Baha'is in Iran are still being banned from universities. Houses are still being broken into, and businesses are still being shut down or set on fire. So to be in America, we are blessed. I was reminded of this when I was allowed to intern this past summer for the IRC, the organization that gave my family and me a new chance in life. I always thought office jobs were not for me, unless that office was Dunder Mifflin and Michael Scott was my boss. However, at the IRC, there were so many things to learn. What really hit close to home this past summer was when I met with brand new refugees to allow them to go through our donations in order to find things they needed. They spoke very little English and seemed overwhelmed and tired. I watched as they picked out kitchen utensils. 5 years ago, my parents, also overwhelmed and tired, were the ones going through the donations. Today, my father works 2 jobs, which adds up to about 70 hours a week. He doesn't like to admit how tired and sleepy he is, because he doesn't want us to feel bad for him, but I can tell. And my mother works at Walmart full-time, and she also attends college classes. She hopes to work for a school or a refugee resettlement office one day and quit Walmart for good. And 4 months ago, my parents purchased our first house. Today, in my high school, I am number 1 in my class. In Iran, I would still not be allowed to attend college. But I promise you this. I am going to attend college and then law school. In Arabic, my name Rooha means life, spirit, and joy. And now here in our new home, I am discovering exactly what that means. Thank you.